I would just say the power is within you. And action can be a really hard thing for people because taking action can be scary. It can be terrifying because sometimes you don't know what's on the other side of whatever choice you're about to make.
How many of us have thought about taking action on something? Perhaps changing careers, changing jobs, asking for a promotion, yet couldn't pull the trigger because it was too scary, too overwhelming, and in the end, did nothing. What would it be like if you actually made a choice to change course in spite of the fears? What might be awaiting you? Meet Cindy Witteman, who grew up in poverty from the back roads of Tennessee and took her underwear to school to wash, as she had no running water. She understands what it's like not to take action and therefore kept finding herself in the same situation until one day she changed course and started making different choices. Today, Cindy is a powerhouse and a force to be reckoned with. You'll want to listen as she talks about her incredible journey, her many accomplishments, and how giving back is her superpower. Welcome, Cindy Witteman. I have to say, this is a young woman that has truly caught my attention and my heart in so many ways. I'm just excited for everyone listening to hear her story and how she has truly created change in her corner of the world. Cindy, welcome, my friend.
Thank you so much for having me. It just means the world to me. Every time I hear you say some sweet words to me like that, it just means the world because I look up to you. So thank you. Thank you so much for saying such kind things.
Thank you, Cindy. That's very kind. Okay, Cindy, tell us a bit about how you got to where you are.
Well, I think that it's really hard to know where I'm at now unless you knew where I came from. So the short of it is I grew up super poor in a generational poverty. I came from a single parent home, had a lot of struggles in my early days, but something in me always tugged at me to find out what more was out there for me. So going from that to a domestic violence relationship and escaping that situation and becoming a single parent to where I am now is kind of quite the contrast. So now I am a 3-time international best-selling author. I'm the host of Little Give TV show where we highlight ordinary people doing extraordinary things to help others. And one of the things I'm most proud of is my nonprofit, Driving Single Parents, where we give away cars to single parents. My entire mission is about highlighting people and spreading kindness. And I know there's so many beautiful people in the world like yourself, Terry, that are out there every day trying to make this world a better place. And it is my mission to shine more light on that because bad news sells and we need a lot more good news to be highlighted.
Well, that's the short of it. Cindy grew up poor. And one of the things she told me was there wasn't a lot of hot water or water at all. And she actually had to wash some of her clothes at school. A lot of people that grow up or grew up in an environment like you had, they either stay where they are and don't figure out or can't figure out how to get to step B. What was the driving force from going from your environment to getting out of it, whether you went to college or you went on to whatever you were doing? What was the driving force for you, do you think?
I think throughout my entire life, I've always had this pull, and I didn't really realize it when I was really young, but I've always had this pull of like, there's more out there. I know there's got to be more out there than my current circumstance. And really throughout my life, no matter where I've been, whether it be, failing miserably or succeeding, exponentially, I've always been like, there's more out there. There's more for me. There's more I can do. There's more I can share. So I'm not really sure what it is about me that had that tug on me, but definitely something in me was saying, hey, those people have a car. Hey, those people have running water and electricity. How could I get some of that? So something inside of me for sure.
And what were the steps that took you from that statement to your trajectory in life?
Well, I think I've always been a fixer since I was a little girl. And like you mentioned, washing my underwear in the sink at school. And, I used to grow potatoes in the yard because I knew that I could use those for a future food source if necessary, which I often went to. And eating raw potatoes in the dark is not as bad as it sounds. It's actually, I have some fond memories of that. But I think that really going from, asking people, how did you get that running water? How did you get that electricity? How did you get that? And always being a fixer and trying to solve the problems that were currently happening in my family and seeing the mistakes that were being made that was creating this month and month and month after month. So I really feel like that's, fixing things and figuring out like, wait, if we would have done this differently, then we could have, water at the end of the month, or we could have electricity, or we could have food. So I think, that's really carried on through my life of being a fixer and fixing those things and thinking of creative ways that I can solve those problems.
And yet, as a child, it's very hard to have that mentality of, gee, how can I be a fixer? How did you get out of your situation? High school, maybe you were still there. When was the turning point for you, Cindy?
Well, actually, it's kind of a crazy story, So I was going through this generational poverty with my mom. We were living, from place to place. We kind of moved a lot as a kid. I went to a lot of different schools and, it was a lot of moving around. And so how do you solve this problem, right? Well, first people would tell me, you got to get a good job, if you want to have this stuff. You've got to go to school, you've got to do these things. Because I would ask, how did you get here? And so in learning all that, I thought, man, I got to get me one of those jobs, right? But I was too young to really work, so I couldn't do that. So I had this bright idea. I told you I'm a fixer. I had this bright idea. You know what? I'll get married to the love of my life. I'll have a white picket fence, beautiful family. I'll have everything that I need, and I'll put this poverty behind me. It's going to be wonderful.
And how old were you?
I got married whenever I was 15.
Okay, so you figured going through that door would solve everything.
Oh, yeah, I could do it. We could have a 2-parent home. We'd have like the working thing, the white picket fence, the whole 9 yards. I had it all figured out, Terry. I ended up worse than ever. So then I had food and water and electricity. We had a car. I mean, we lived in a fifth wheel trailer to kind of start off, and things were fine for a while, but I found myself in a domestic violence relationship, and it turned out, and my mom, she's a wonderful, loving, caring mom. And I never want people to think I'm talking bad about my mom. She just wasn't good with money, but she was very loving, and I didn't experience violence in the home. I didn't experience alcoholism. I didn't experience any of those things. So although very poor with money, poor decisions, I never had any trauma or things like that when it came to abuse. So when this started to happen to me, I kind of didn't really know where to go with it and just kept thinking to myself, it's only happening to me, so I can fix this, again, a fixer. I could fix this. I could just cook better. I could just clean better. I could just talk less. I could just do all these things to make it perfect so my picket fence could stay the same. And that didn't work out for me too well either.
What happened? So what was the next phase? You left, you were 15 when you got married. How long were you in this relationship?
So I left when I was 21, but didn't get officially divorced till almost 10 years. It was almost 10 years that we were married. But what caused me to leave the situation was one day I was folding clothes. I was watching the Dr. Phil show, like a stay-at-home mom would do, right? And Dr. Phil says, it's better to come from a broken home than it is to grow up in one. And immediately, Terry, when he said those words, it was like he was talking directly to me. I stood up, I grabbed my daughters, I got a basket of clothes, a bag of diapers, and we left. And we never went back. I built a new life for us. I worked 2 jobs, put myself through college, and we got on the other side of success pretty quickly there.
You went to college, you were on your own. And what was the next phase from there? You worked, you had a job. I'm just trying to segue to how you became this amazing, creative woman by the abundance of giving back and sharing is just enormous. It just didn't happen overnight.
Oh, definitely not. I wish it had because there was a lot of bumps in the road. But, I'm a big believer that you don't win or lose. You either win or learn. And let me tell you, Terry, I've done a lot of learning in my day. So what happened next? Okay, so then I leave that situation. I'm working two jobs. I'm going to school. I initially, when I got the first job, I was like, okay, so I don't want to work two, three jobs my whole life. How can I get to the next thing? One of the things in domestic violence that a lot of people maybe are or are not aware of is there's a lot of psychological abuse, not just the physical. The physical, the bumps, the bruises, they go away eventually, but the trauma of your psyche is there forever. And, a lot of that was me being conditioned to be told I was stupid, I was no good, I was trash. I was ugly, I was too skinny, I was all of these things, right? I was never going to be nothing. If I ever left, I was going to end up on welfare and food stamps, just like my mom, and a lot of things that I believed at the time. And so in leaving that situation, all of that conditioning in my mind was like, how do I not do that? How do I not continue this cycle? How do I break the chains of generational poverty? How do I stop this? And I knew that if I just kept working two jobs, that was going to be my life forever. And I didn't want that for myself. And I wanted my daughters to be proud of me. So I decided, okay, well, now you're going to have to work really hard in the short term and put yourself in college, and you're going to miss your daughters, but you've got to do what you've got to do. So I worked those two jobs. I put myself through college, and eventually my daughters hugged me when I walked the stage at my college graduation, and it was everything. So that's really like kind of how I got through those times and got myself on the other side of success.
From college, where did you go?
Another funny story of when nothing goes right, go left, right? So I went to nursing school, believe it or not. I thought, I was watching ER on TV and I thought, my daughters would be so proud of me if I was a nurse. That's a noble job. I'm going to do that. So then I realized how much I did not like nursing. I mean, I did not like it. And so I pivoted and I kept working at another job that I had, and I moved up the ranks there and did well there. But still, all the while, I was selling plasma, 2 times a week to put food on the table. I was doing all of these things, just pushing and pushing and pushing, trying to get past. And then I found myself in yet another domestic violence situation, which was not fun again. So then again, I had to get out of that. And
were you married? I'm sorry. Were you married?
No.
You just in the relationship?
Yes, in the relationship, and then that all. And, a lot of this stuff will come out in my book, Beyond the Smile. Eventually, it's occurring to me that, hey, my dad used to tell me all the time, Terry, he'd say, if you picture a little kid in the marching band and he's walking and he tells his mom across the way, he says, Mom, look, everybody's out of step but me. All the while, that one kid is out of step and everybody else is in step. And I started to think to myself, like, what is it about me that's getting me in these situations? And so then I really started to do a deep dive on myself and get myself in a healing place where I could stay away from those type relationships in the future moving forward.
What came next?
So then now again, I'm working, I'm doing all this. I'm working 50 hours a week. I'm, really in the grind. I'm making decent money, got my own place, my daughters, we're doing good. We have food. I'm still selling plasma at this point. And my dad tells me, Cindy, you've really got to make a change. You're working nights, you're working weekends, you're working so much. And yeah, you're putting food on the table and you're providing, which was something he knew I had a trigger for because I didn't want to end up in poverty. And my dad said, Cindy, if you don't do something different, you're never going to know your daughters. Your daughters are not going to know who you are. This is not sustainable. So I thought, about it. And anyways, I ended up taking a low paying job in the legal field. With my dad's encouragement, he was like, Cindy, you've got to do it. So I saved my income tax check and saved some money for my higher paying job so that I could get by for 1 year with this lower paying job in the hopes that I'd be able to get promoted. And I did. I ended up getting promoted quite a bit in the legal field. And now I've been there for 17 years. So it's really worked out for me. And then I had nights and weekends and holidays and everything off. So that got me to a place of stability. So then we had the stable job. I had a house built for my girls and we were doing okay, but I knew there was more.
And what was more?
What was more was I figured out that the power was within me the whole time. And that, I always had these self-limiting beliefs my whole life of like, you talk too much. In fact, my family bought me a shirt one time that said, help, I'm talking and I can't shut up. And it's hilarious to me now, but at the time it was like, as a kid, you get really self-conscious about these things. And I had all these, thinking, I'm trash, I'm no good, I'm poor, I'm, ugly, I'm stupid, I talk too much, all of these things. So once I realized that, hey, you know what? None of that stuff's true. It's just I bought what people were selling to me all those years. And once I figured out that the power was within me and that I could choose something bigger, I could choose something different, that's when things really started to change. That's whenever I was able to kind of attract that better relationship, that I wanted in my life. I was able to attract, a higher paying job. I was able to really shift to giving back. In the midst of all of this, I read a book called Think and Grow Rich. I actually didn't read it because I actually don't like reading. Fun fact about Cindy, 3-time international best-selling author who doesn't like to read. Go figure, right? So I end up listening to the audio version of Think and Grow Rich. And I realize that, oh, wait, it's about giving back. It's about being in gratitude. This is the component I'm missing here. So I end up starting that, right? Okay, I'm going to feel good. I'm going to be in gratitude. I'd be grateful for what I already have. And I really start to see more and more positive attracting to me over time. And then the next thing that happens is I'm at dinner one night and the idea pops into my head for my nonprofit. I literally stand at the table and go, that's it. I'm going to give away cars to single parents in need in the middle of dinner. And so at the time I was at dinner with my then fiance, now he's my husband, and he's a lawyer. And so he looks at me and he says, Cindy, sit down. You are not giving away anything. Do you have any idea what type of liability issue this is? So I listened very intently, Terry, and then I went home, I built the website, and I made a business plan, and we started driving single parents within 24 hours.
Don't go away. We have much more to talk about. This episode is brought to you by Try Coaching. How much negative talking goes on in your head every day? It's time to stop listening to those limiting beliefs and start telling yourself that you are good enough to get what you want. I am an executive business and communications coach for over 20 years with multiple certifications and have helped hundreds of people create the success that they are looking for. Reach out and let's start a conversation so you can get to where you want to go quickly. You can learn more about me at trycoaching.com. Yep, that's Cindy. That is Cindy. And from there, her trajectory has been incredible for a young woman. She talked about her book. She's got a podcast. She's doing the cars. And I think you have a business with little children. I don't know. Am I wrong?
Yeah, no, it's called Little Give. It's not a business. It's a TV show.
So tell us about that.
Yeah, so we highlight ordinary people doing extraordinary things to help others. And that kind of came to play with me being a nonprofit founder. So when I founded Driving Single Parents, and we started less than a month after I started the nonprofit, we gave away our first car to a gentleman who was hit by a drunk driver. And in that accident, he lost his car, his leg, and his wife, and became a single dad overnight. And so we gave that car to him on April 1st. So 7 years now, we've been giving away cars with this nonprofit. So in doing that, I realized that as a nonprofit founder, we don't want to give away our money, the money that we make for the nonprofit, to marketing. But the problem is if nobody knows about your nonprofit, then how good could it be, right? You can't get donors if you don't have visibility. You can't do a lot, but as a nonprofit founder, you want all that money to go to your mission. So I thought, how can I help other nonprofit founders? How can I help other nonprofits with visibility without having to pay anything? And so, of course, when I was offered the opportunity to host the show, they told me I could pick whatever I wanted the show to be about. I could pick all of my own guests, and I could pick my own schedule and when it was going to air and the name it, everything. So I chose Little Give because I think oftentimes when it comes to philanthropy, people think you have to give $10,000 or a week of your time. You don't. There's some little gives that you can give every day in your life that can cost you nothing in some cases, or you could donate $1 or $5 and really make a difference. So I decided, of course, to name it Little Give, and it was going to be all about highlighting ordinary people doing extraordinary things to help others. And this way I could use it as a springboard for other nonprofits. So other nonprofits could come on, founders, and anybody, even if you just had a business, you could promote a nonprofit at the end of every episode. And so the idea is at the end of every episode, I say, whether it's $1 or $5, every nonprofit can really benefit from this little donation that you make. And so now I have these people come on and I can highlight them and show the great work that these nonprofits are doing. And the show airs in 127 countries. We have a potential viewership of over 30 million. And it really is that springboard that can help these nonprofits. So again, if anybody who's ever followed my story knows, my main focus is what can I do right now today in my life to make somebody else's life a little bit better? And I think by highlighting these nonprofits and highlighting people who are doing amazing things and spreading good news, that really is causing a ripple effect that can go on to help the next person and help the next person and help the next person.
One of the things that strikes me is you've said a few times, ordinary people doing extraordinary deeds. And that's you, that's me in creating change. And what you do out in the world, that ordinary people, Cindy is really not an ordinary person, but an extraordinary person doing extraordinary deeds in her life. From where she came, she is truly giving back in so many ways. And one of my taglines for my website is, when you work with passion and purpose, your work can become extraordinary. And that is Cindy Witteman.
Thank you.
Doing an ordinary gal who grew up in poverty and has made her way to where she is today. It takes a lot of effort, a lot of challenge, and a lot of digging deep to take oneself out of their circumstances to becoming who they really have a vision of who they want to become. So it's not only the Little Give TV show, you're an entrepreneur, you're a coach, you're a speaker. So talk briefly about some of these parts of yourself.
Absolutely. So just like you were saying, I want to piggyback on what you said real quick, which is ordinary people. And that's my whole point of sharing my story is that I'm just an ordinary person. And people would always ask me when I started the nonprofit, Cindy, what is it about you? What is it about you? It's like, there's nothing about me. I saw a need and I found a way to meet that need. That's it. It's something any of us can do every day. Any of us. I'm not an extraordinary person. I'm an ordinary person who made a decision and makes a choice every day to try to make this world a little bit of a better place. So in regards to your question and what are my other projects all about? So yes, I'm an entrepreneur. I own CF Views. And again, my mission to help others is really, really huge. I call it heart work. Everything I do is heart work because it's my mission and it's my power and it's my purpose and it's everything I'm all about. So in that, I do action mastery coaching because for a long time, Terry, I did a life and confidence coaching and I spoke to people and I helped them, with their struggles and whatnot. But what I realized in that journey, a lot of times people don't need more advice. They don't need more information. Sometimes they need the tools that go in their tool belt to help them to the next step. And I realized that even though I was giving valuable information to the people I was coaching, and some of them did really great things and they would move the needle a little bit, but they would always kind of come back. And I realized the big problem was action. And action can be a really hard thing for people because taking action can be scary. It can be terrifying because sometimes you don't know what's on the other side of whatever choice you're about to make. And it can be overwhelming. And so with my action mastery coaching, I really walk people through the steps needed to, not just take action on everything, but to make a strategy and then a plan. If you can come from, think of what you want to do, and then you create a strategy, and then you have a plan, and then you execute on all the things that are important to you, you can just imagine how quickly that needle would move in your favor towards that life of change that you really want and getting you to where you want to be to help manifest your dreams. And so that's really what I've been doing with the business. And I love it. And then in addition to that, I also do advertising and obviously my books that I sell on there as well.
As a coach myself, as you know, a certified executive business and career coach, I also understand because I work the same way in a lot of ways. I go really deep with clients in really helping them turn their eyes inward to really look at what stops them from here to getting to there. And I think once people figure that out, it's easier for folks to really make the changes that they want. Also, I don't know if a lot of people know this, aside from everything else Cindy does, she is a beekeeper. I am personally afraid of bees and run. What made you become a beekeeper? I mean, to me, that's like a lion or a tiger tamer.
So I'll go back to it once again. Everything I do is all focused around helping. And so the situation is there's some property that's been in the family for many, many years. And that property has been handed down and come through the family. And, thinking through, how high taxes are and how high, expenses can get whenever you have a property like that. The main mission is to make sure that it's affordable to carry through generations. So I did some research and I discovered that you can get a huge tax break on the property if you have bees, right? So you get an exemption for the taxes. So I said, I bet I could do this bee thing, because then I know, like, for right now, the property's fine, right? Taxes are affordable, but that's not going to always be the case. And we never know where future generations are going to be in our family. We don't know if they're going to be able to afford $400, $600, $800 a month for a property that's paid in full. We don't know. And so how can I make it to where for generations, the family can carry on and not have to be forced to sell the property because the taxes are unaffordable? Boom. So I find out that we can do this bee thing. So I do some research. I'm like, I could do this bee thing. So I take a bee course, I get me some bees, and here I am now. I've been doing the bee business for a while. I do not sell the honey. People ask me that all the time, but it's just basically for the ag exemption, and I happen to love it. So it's also a passion project.
So you take care of the bees, you put your whole outfit on and your gloves, and you go in there, and I sometimes see pictures of you holding up these honeycombs, I guess, and all these bees buzzing about. Do you ever get stung?
Yes, I do. And actually, Terry, you'd be quite terrified to know that most of the time I don't wear any protection other than the gloves. Because the bees, when you grab the racks, sometimes you might touch a bee and they're not going to sting you because they're mean, but you touch them, they're scared, they sting you. And so it really hurts to get them in your fingers, the stings in your fingers, because when you're typing or writing or anything, it can be quite irritating. So I do wear the gloves for that reason, but I have Italian honeybees and they're very docile. I mean, you really wouldn't want to pet them too much, but you could pick them up and they won't sting you. I have been stung before because obviously the bees get trapped sometimes in your clothing. So I've had a bee, when I had my sunglasses on, I had a bee get behind my glasses and sting me once. And then I have had a couple of get in my suit when I had my suit on and sting. But it's not because they're being aggressive or they're scary or they're mean. It's that one, they feel like their hive is being threatened, or two, they get trapped and they don't know what to do, so they sting.
Wow. From poverty to speaker to author to
busy bee,
non-profits to being busy bee that you are. That is so true. So did you ever think in your life that you would ever get to where you are today?
I don't think I could have envisioned where I'm at today. I always knew there's a song by Travis Tritt that I listened to a lot when I was growing up, and a lot in even now to this day I listen to it. It's called I'm Going to Be Somebody One Day. And one of these days I'm going to break these chains. And those are some of the lyrics in there. But that was always me. I was always been someone to be like, one day I'm going to be somebody. One day I'm going to make change. One day I'm going to break this cycle of generational poverty. One day I'm going to, break all of these cycles. One day. I didn't know how. So no, I could not have imagined where I'm at today. And probably if you had told me that I was going to be here, I would not believe you. I would think that you were telling me a fib.
What words of encouragement, even though we've heard your whole story, can you give to our audience, pulling out maybe some of the nuggets?
I would just say the power is within you. Oftentimes everybody talks about, something happened to them or something's going on outside of them. But once you can really do what Terry said a minute ago, which is look deep within you, heal that person inside of you and realize that you have a unique gift and the powers within you, and you can do anything you put your mind to. They tell us when we're kids, you can do anything you put your mind to, but then they say, well, maybe that's too ambitious, or maybe you talk too much. Then we get all of these, self-limiting beliefs that are imposed on us, and then we take them as our own. So I would say the powers within you. Work hard at healing whatever's happened in your life that is holding you back, and then have the confidence to move forward. And if you don't feel it inside of you, ask for help. There's nothing wrong with getting a coach. There's nothing wrong with asking for help. You can research things online. You can write out your hopes and dreams. There's so many things and so many tools out there that you can use to utilize that power. I tell people all the time, Terry, that for years, I was pushing and pushing and pushing, just trying to get through and trying. And it wasn't until I stepped into my power and found my purpose. Now that pushes me. Now it's not work anymore. Now it's fun. Now I get to have great conversations like this to tell my story and hopefully show somebody out there that no matter where you came from, you can make it to the next level. All you have to do is discover the power within you, find out what you want, and go for it.
One last question. What do you hope your legacy will be?
I hope that I can spread kindness forever. I hope that people can see that, you watch the news and it can be so terrifying. I want people to know there's good people out there. There's a lot of great people out there. And I hope that whatever mark I leave on this world is something, a little smidgen of something that can give somebody who needs it a little hope that there is a future of kindness and love and respect and generations of wonderful people that are to come.
This is Cindy Witteman's story. It's truly outstanding, inspirational, and so amazing that this very young woman has taken herself from very poor beginnings to where she sits today, and the inspiration she spreads every single day. Cindy Witteman, I cannot tell you what an honor it has been for me to have you on this podcast. You are doing such incredible things at such a young age that I only wish you continue to do what you're doing. You are making a huge difference in this world. Thank you so much, Cindy.
Thank you, Terry. And thank you for using this platform to highlight me and all the amazing people who come before you on this podcast, spreading good news and helping in that way, in the way that you do in your unique way, is really, really making positive change as well. So thank you for what you're doing.
Thank you. I hope this compelling and extraordinary conversation with Cindy Witteman has offered you thoughts on how you can create changes in your life. Reviews encourage people to listen to my podcast. Please go to Apple Podcasts and leave a rating and review if you loved what you heard. Thank you. For related content on extraordinary work, please visit my website, trycoaching.com. My next guest, David Meltzer, is a legendary sports executive and the previous CEO of the renowned Lee Steinberg Sports and Entertainment Agency, which was the inspiration for the movie Jerry Maguire. David is an entrepreneur, business coach, and keynote speaker who knows how to empower people. Don't miss this episode to hear about David's journey and perhaps pick up some advice that you can include in your own life.